If you asked Sterling Moss, which I did once, his favourite sports cars, he of course said Mercedes 300 SLR, because that's what he won Mille Miglia with. But I think his second favourite was the Maserati 300S.
I believe so, yeah.
And I'm with Sam Jordan, who looks after two of these wonderful Maseratis, the 300S, which we'll talk about now, and the 450S we'll talk about later. But Sam, essentially the 300S in ways is a two-seat 250F Grand Prix car.
Yeah, they're very similar in the way that the engine's laid out, and similar characteristics. Very, very similar gearbox, if not the same, in the rear.
Yes.
But yeah, obviously it's covered, which is great as a sports car. But and the 3-litre engine.
Right.
That's the big main differences really, but fundamentally, yeah, they're very similar.
Yes.
And very similar handling characteristics as well.
The 250F, you slid around the corners with the tail out nicely. I guess the same with the 300S.
Yeah, I know.
And drum brakes, of course, discs came in a couple of years later.
Well, the discs were already out with the D-types, weren't they? But Maserati, for some reason, seemed to want to stick. They were probably the best in the world at the time, building drum brakes.
I think Dunlop wouldn't let them have discs.
No, they probably wouldn't, would they? But they do work all right.
Yes.
But they're just a different driving style, to get the best out of them, really.
They last 2 or 3 laps, and then you throw it sideways.
Yeah, try and slow it down with a slide.
And performance-wise, same sort of acceleration and top speed as a D-type. Probably not top speed.
No, I mean, with acceleration-wise, they're quite quick, and I would imagine power-wise in period they were similar to a D-type. Now, obviously, things have moved on, with the Jag engines and these as well. But
when Jags went to 3.8 litres and fuel injection, you're not going to do 192 down the straight.
No. Well, you could if you geared it, but you wouldn't be under, be with them, if you see what I mean.
Okay.
So. But the main characteristics of these cars, just that the handling of them was superb. So.
How many 300Ss did they make?
Oh, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, to be honest.
Yeah.
No, about 30 odd, I think it was.
As
to be
many
honest.
as that?
Yeah.
A lot went to South America, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
Should we go and have a look at the 450?
Yeah, of course we can.
Now, the year after Sterling won the Mille Miglia in the Mercedes, of course, gave up racing after the horrible accident at Le Mans. And so Sterling went back to Maserati and said, build me a car for the Mille Miglia, and they built this monstrous 450S with a 4.5-litre V8 engine.
Yeah, well, this was the car.
Amazing. And so Sterling with Dennis Jenkinson set off to win the Mille Miglia again, but after half a mile or so, something awful happened.
Yeah, the brake pedal snapped.
The brake pedal snapped clean off. And I think they'd done about a mile or so.
We weren't too far, were it? I know that he walked back to the pits. Well, the start line, and all the mechanics were in tears, weren't they?
They were. Maserati weren't famed for the quality of the metals they used.
Well, no, I mean they're still not.
Careful what you say.
Yeah, definitely.
You'll have Mr. Ferrari after you.
I think it was a weld that broke, if you know what I mean. So it wasn't actually a failure of the brake pedal, it was where they were welded onto the pivot, so that's where it sheared off, which we still have, to be fair.
You still got the broken bit?
The pedals there, yeah.
Oh, wow. You need to frame it.
Well, it's in a box, to be honest with you, just for all the rest of the space, yeah.
So similar chassis to the 300S or much beefier?
It's a lot bigger, to be honest with you, and a lot wider as well. Everything's gauged up. There was a bit of development with the 350S, and it's just I won't say a completely different car. It looks very similar in the drawings, but everything's just a lot wider, bigger, stronger, and there's a lot more weight in them as well. I mean, one of these will weigh about 850, 860 kilos, and that's at 1100. Wow. So it's a huge difference. But then again, the power's, there's a lot more power involved in one.
So what sort of power? 400 horsepower?
And some.
And more than that?
Yeah. They would figure, factory were quoting 450 horsepower, at the time. So it's quite a lot to stop as well. So
I bet it is. Similar brakes to the 300.
Yeah, they use slightly bigger drums on the front.
Right.
And
there's still a rear-mounted gearbox?
It is, yeah. It's a rear-mounted Calotti gearbox, so not their own.
Oh, right.
Well, it was. I say not their own. It was a Calotti designed. Obviously, they built it in house, but.
And is it beefy enough to handle the power?
Yeah, it is. It's huge. Yeah. The gears are about 40 mil wide, in the drop gears, and the ones in the gearbox themselves are 20-25 mil in.
And from a handling point of view, not as nice as the 300.
No, not as nimble. No, I mean it's a very, very good, strong car. For Spa or Le Mans, or big Monza would be a superb place for it as well. Yeah. But it's not very it's not very nimble, just because of the way the car is. That's all.
And tops out down the Mulsanne at what, 175 or something?
No, you could do more. You could probably get 190 mile an hour.
Really?
Yeah. If you geared it, it's got enough power to drag it through the air. Yeah. Definitely.
Sam, that is fantastic. Thanks very much indeed. They're two beautiful cars.
Yeah, thanks for letting us come. It's been good.